Okay, so based off of what I understand as far as from what we've learned throughout our program thus far, especially within the 712 course, when I look at the simulated interdisciplinary midterm and I listen to the frustrations of the member in the community, when I listen to what Justin's saying, I listen to what Barrett's saying, I listen to what everybody is saying, they all have valid points and they all have valid frustrations. It is absolutely valid because they're all humans and they all have their own expertise in their areas and they're all dealing with their own challenges within their expertise as well, which is important to highlight, right? When I look at what everybody is saying, it is important to make sure that everybody is in a safe space, and that is what we're coming down to, is that common goal of everybody being in a safe space. Now, what that safe space looks like is just a little bit different based off of everybody's expertise and everybody's practice, right? Justin makes a valid point when he says, hey, how would you feel if you had to poop in front of somebody's lawn? How would you feel if this was your life and you didn't have a choice but to do that? And let's think about other alternatives that we can use for people, right? Those are the things that are important, and bringing up ideas as far as, okay, well, people just call the police and they want to get them arrested. However, they don't want to provide them with the services that they need, right? And the community member saying, hey, well, people are scared. Absolutely valid, right? What's important when it comes to interdisciplinary work is being able to manage through conflict. And right now, there is an apparent conflict. However, everybody does want the same thing, which is to keep everybody safe, whether that's the individuals down at MassCast or those are the individuals of the community. Everybody wants to be safe, right? Down to the people who are part of this team. Barrett states wanting to be safe and bringing that feeling back home to his family, right? With that, what'll be important in order to come together and make a common goal would be having a discussion on what is it that they're looking for. And it's not just about the community member having to pay taxes and feeling as though their community is trash. That's not what it's about. It's about finding a common goal on what they feel like they need. And again, this can look as to, and you'll read this in my paper, as far as the common goal is to relocate everybody. However, what does that mean when you relocate everybody? As an individual who has experienced MassCast personally and has experienced it throughout my whole entire life, it felt like it has amplified throughout the years. It's always felt as though, as a Bostonian, they just displace people. They take them from Dudley and put them back on Melina Cass Boulevard. They take them from Melina Cass Boulevard and then put them in the South End. And then they close off the South End and then they're right back on Melina Cass Boulevard. Then they close that off and they're right back in Dudley, right? And so those are the things that I've been able to witness as a Bostonian myself, born and raised. And so when I say effectively displace them, what does that really mean, right? And that would mean providing them with the resources they need. And I think the city of Boston has an amazing idea when it comes to rebuilding the bridge back over to Long Island. It is amazing to think that could work as far as putting people on a different island and taking them away from their environment. And that's honestly what we see when it comes to systems, as far as people being impacted by an environment, people being impacted by society norms or what society deems as appropriate, people being impacted as far as what it really looks like when it comes to systems being involved in their life. And I see that now in the practice that I'm in when it comes to DCF being involved, DYS being involved, different systems that impact people in the way that they show up, right? Now we're seeing a heavy conflict when it comes to a system as far as politicians and not wanting to rebuild the bridge back over to Long Island. So what more can we do? And the more that we can do is, I think, is absolutely appropriate to what Redmond was saying in her article from a clinical social worker's perspective, right? Is bringing things to them. You had an experience that she highlighted in there where the individual states, well, why can't they come to us? Fair. That is a fair assumption, is a fair statement, right? Why can't people go to them? Why can't people show up and bring them what they need? And again, to revert back to me being a Bostonian, I've seen people show up and do, provide them with clothing, provide them with food, provide them with various different things that they need to meet that first tier when it comes to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What's next, right? And what more can they be provided to them? Justin makes a great point when he brings up that the correctional facility is right there and they're being discharged, right? That is another system that is a part of this bigger picture when it comes to what do their services look like within the correctional facility that allows them to discharge appropriately, to kind of decrease the recidivism rate, right? And so there's multiple things that we're thinking about when it comes to interdisciplinary work, but it takes a team of people to come together and make that work and have a common goal. And part of that is communicating effectively. And even though there's conflict, and even though there's emotions, and people are highly upset when it comes to the things that they're experiencing, and they're extremely passionate, how do you get those across, right? And part of that will be allowing people to be experts in the room as far as what they're experts on. The community member is expert at being a community member. Justin is an expert at working in healthcare. That is what he's good at, and so he makes great points on what he's good at. And to that, I say, communication is always going to be helpful. Conflict is always going to arise. However, when I look at that simulated interdisciplinary meeting, everybody has a common goal already. It's just they're not touching on that common goal and how to approach that common goal and breaking that common goal down to what needs to be, looked at for a solution.